guys, it's Miss Minion, and we're here for flip video number 2 for World War II. So we're going to go over learning targets 6.4, label, identify, and explain major events in the war, and learning target 6.5, discuss and analyze the roles of significant individuals during World War II. This is also going to kind of go back to the rise of totalitarianism, because we're going to also talk about our guy Hitler here. Okay, so let's get started so we can get finished. Alright, so some causes of World War II, and we don't forget that we've already went over American neutrality and what America's side was on this. But some causes of World War II are going to be right here. Treaty of Versailles, fascism and Nazism, the failure of the League of Nations, Japanese imperialism, and worldwide economic depression. Okay, the Great Depression. So let's start with the Versailles Treaty. This is how World War I ended, so this is just a recap. If you'll remember, Germany was humiliated. They were not invited to sign this treaty or to be part of this treaty. They limited their military, their forces. They were forced to pay money to allies for damages, and this is going to lead to Hitler's rise. So this is a slide straight from the World War I PowerPoint that just reminds you that Germany was at the bottom of the barrel at this point, and they were looking for someone to bring them back up. Okay. So, it's a picture of Mussolini. I have a lot of pictures in here, and they're kind of random, so we'll go through that. And this, you can use all of these as primary sources on your project. Alright, so Adolf Hitler, so this is kind of where it starts. We know about Hitler that he blames the Jews and the Versailles Treaty for Germany's problems. So, the first step of business is he's going to ignore the Versailles Treaty completely, and no one is going to stop him on this. So, a lot of people know that he's ignoring it, but no one stops him. So first he establishes concentration camps for anybody who is undesirable. And undesirable meant political opponents, Jewish, communists, if you were gay, gypsy, anything that was not the norm for Hitler, then you were at risk of going to a concentration camp. Okay? And we'll get into the Holocaust a little bit more later. So what Hitler does when he's trying to establish his power, the first thing he does is establish the Axis powers. And if you'll remember, the Axis powers are Italy, Germany, and Japan during World War II. So he conquers first Austria and Czechoslovakia with threats of war. And England and France initially appease him, and appeasement means that you're just going to kind of concede and kind of say, okay, we'll let you have that, but you can't have anything else. They do this so that they can avoid war with Hitler. However, we all should know that them appeasing Hitler, it gives him more power because he goes ahead and takes over Austria and Czechoslovakia. So England and France are kind of trying to figure out what they're going to do at this point because they have let Hitler take over parts of Europe that were not his. So you've given him big power and a big head. Alright, so you can see here, here's Germany in 1936, so this is the German aggression, and you have Czechoslovakia and Austria. So basically he just kind of walks in and he takes over these areas. Alright, and so you can see like over here would be where Russia is, and if you look on this little small map, this is where it is. So this is the area we're talking about. Okay, so obviously that's Mussolini and Hitler together. Okay, so how did World War II begin? This is one of my favorite pictures to look at because it kind of just says, if you don't have to read everything in there, but you can kind of see Hitler is playing Monopoly and he's kind of taking things, and it says, let's just let him win a few pieces, then we can quit. Okay, and then it's, okay, fine, Adolf, do you promise to stop this silly game now? And then Adolf is like, oh yeah, I'll quit. And then all of a sudden he's invading Poland, and then everybody's trying to get the soldiers out of France. Okay, so final steps to war. So after taking Austria and Czechoslovakia, Hitler demanded Poland in March 1939. And when he demands Poland and goes and tries to take Poland, Britain and France end appeasement. Which means they're going to declare war on Hitler. Hitler and Stalin, remember, is the leader of the USSR, signed a non-aggression pact saying that they would not attack each other. And so that, there's the bell. So that is going to keep Stalin and the Soviet Union out of the war for just a little while. Not for long. Okay, and that's the signing of that pact. Wait. That's the signing of them going to war. Sorry. Okay, World War II begins. So Germany goes ahead, and he's like, I don't care what you say, Britain, and I don't care what you say, France. I'm going to invade Poland. This starts World War II. So they declare war on him. I've already said that. And the U.S. remains neutral. Okay, so here's Hitler, and you have to keep in mind, like, Hitler is running a country here, and these people support him, and they don't know that he's, like, got these plans to take over the world, and he's got these plans to kill people. They just know that he cares about Germany, because he's not sitting there saying, hey, let's go kill all the Jews, and hey, let's go, take over the world. He's not saying that. He's speaking about Germany and having pride in his country, and a lot of people follow him for that. They don't know about his plans. Okay, so he uses, one important thing about Hitler is that he uses blitzkrieg tactics, and that is the lightning war. It's basically when you have a war, and this is a word you need to know, it's like when you have a war and they're coming from all over. So you have soldiers coming out of the sky, you have tanks rolling in, you got ships pulling up, you got people running everywhere. That's a blitzkrieg. You get them all at once. And this is going to help defeat the Polish army in less than 1 month. And then the Soviets invade Poland from the east, because in the non-aggression pact, the Soviets have said, we will split Poland up. So they're still in a non-aggression pact. Okay, so this is an example of a blitzkrieg. This is a modern day picture, but it should kind of give you the overall idea. All right, and these are pictures of German soldiers driving into Poland. Got some Nazi airplanes. So airplanes were not as big in World War I, but they're very big in World War II. We got tanks moving in, so we've got the blitzkrieg. Okay, so war in the West. So after that, Hitler conquers Denmark and Norway in April 1940. So he's collecting all these small countries and making his way toward France. And he finally attacks Netherlands, Belgium, and France on May 10th, 1940. He used blitzkrieg tactics to defeat the French and the British armies. And then 340,000 Allied troops had to be rescued from Dunkirk and France in June. So they had to be removed because Hitler had taken over France. Now, the Miracle of Dunkirk is one of your projects, so we will cover that when we get to the projects. Okay, and those are supplies being dropped. All right, this is German bombers leveling the city. So they didn't just hit military targets, the bombers dropped bombs everywhere in the city. All right, German tanks. This shows you the machine gun. The Germans had better machine guns than we did. It says, with a burst rate of 1,200 rounds per minute, the MG-34 terrified inexperienced Allied soldiers who fought against it. The high-pitching saw noise it made intimidated troops, but the MG-34 spent ammunition very fast and wastefully. Very easy to operate and allowed for quick barrel changes. So if you remember, the machine guns of World War I were much bigger. So technology has changed a lot. Okay, so France surrenders, and Britain is now alone against Hitler. Now, a lot of the soldiers from France have escaped to Britain, so Britain still has that. And once Hitler finds out that he took over France, he goes, of course, and takes this picture in front of the Eiffel Tower, and this is just a symbol of power. This is also, I like this picture because it shows Hitler stamping his foot in joy when the news of France's defeat reached him. Later on, people will animate this, so it looks like he's stamping up and down, and they use it as propaganda. All right, so you can read some of these and go through if you need to. These are the soldiers coming into Paris, and the Parisians looking and seeing them occupying the city. And you got to kind of think of like your hometown. What if some soldiers from a different country came in? Like, how would you feel? And these are all that I'm showing you primary sources. Okay, these are soldiers that got the Iron Cross during this French campaign, and the Iron Cross is kind of like the Medal of Honor. Okay, so Hitler has all of these countries. Oh, sorry, those were my keys. He has all of these countries, and now he's going to go after Britain in 1941. Okay, and so just keep in mind, America is not involved in this yet. So they have an air battle. The German Luftwaffe, which is what they called their air force, attempted to destroy Britain. But they were won by the British Air Force, the RAF, which is the Royal Air Force. The British were able to hold out. So Prime Minister Winston Churchill inspired the British people this time. Make sure you write Winston Churchill, Prime Minister, down, because we have only covered dictators, and we didn't actually cover the leaders of the free world. And Winston Churchill is very important. He's actually one of your vocab words. And there he is in his well-known hat. All right. So these are just some pictures of the fighting of the Battle of Britain. And when it didn't work for Hitler hitting just military targets. He bombed London. And so here are some pictures of him of after London has been bombed. So you can see that double-decker bus. And then the interesting thing about this is that people knew it was coming because the British were the first to invent radar. And so they could tell that the British were coming, and they were able, not the British, they could tell that the Germans were coming, and they could alert their people. And so their people went down into basements and cellars and were able to hide. And so this is after they found out that they had won. All right, and these are all pictures of London. So like I said, you could use any of these in your project. Okay, so between 1939 and 1941, Germany invaded and conquered much of Europe. So if you look, this is what Germany was. So these are the Central Powers right here. And everything that's in yellow, even down here in North Africa, that is what Hitler has taken over. So if you can remember from world history, this kind of looks like the map when Napoleon did it. Napoleon did kind of the same thing. So, not to mention that the non-aggression pact will end between the Soviet Union and Germany. As you can see, Germany goes up all the way to Moscow. All right, and these are all the paths that Hitler takes. And so he's fighting a war on many different fronts, so that's going to use a lot of resources. So keep that in mind. So finally, Hitler is going to attack the Soviet Union and get rid of the non-aggression pact. He's going to go ahead and attack because he wants more resources, he wants more land. So 3.6 million German and Axis troops invade, and they're stopped at the gates of Moscow. So the Soviet Union is able to push them back. Sorry about the bell. And this is going to make the Soviets mad, so of course they're going to join the Allied powers. All right, so here's some pictures. This one is one of the most famous pictures. This is a German soldier caught in the moment of death. It's really sad. Okay. Now, what's really cool about Moscow is that the citizens of the Soviet Union knew that he was coming, obviously. And so what they did is they built these ditches that are anti-tank ditches. So the tanks couldn't get through these because they were just wide enough and just deep enough that the tank couldn't roll through and get out of it. And these are Soviet troops advancing in the snow outside Moscow. Now, keep in mind, same thing, like Germany, back from when Napoleon tried to do the same thing, the Germans were not prepared. The Soviets were prepared. They had winter equipment, and the Germans didn't. These are Germans surrendering, and now here's the picture of what has been conquered. Okay, and soldiers, these are German soldiers hang a man for resistance activities. If you were a German soldier and you tried to run away, then they would hang you. This concentration camp. So that's it. That's where we're going to end today, and have a good night. I'll see you later.